Yeah, I have only one query, Rakesh. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, you're going to cover the quality transforms, right, during the session?
Yeah, uh, see, we will have a peep into the quality transformations, which is
Yeah.
base match, which will give us, quality transformations will work. But for the
Hmm.
rest of the transformations to, even work on our systems, we don't have the proper licenses on that part. So this we will cover the match transformation, which will give us a fair idea like how to work with the remaining transformations. Because
Okay.
the framework of the quality transformations is same. And I mean, if you look at the history, there are two segments. One is integrated and the second one is quality. So if you
Yes.
look at the integrated transformations, the entire framework of all the integrated transformations is same. So if you understand one, probably you can easily understand the next. So likewise, the quality transformations are also framed in such a pattern that if we can understand one, then probably we can understand the rest.
Okay. I think you are using the 4.0 or 4.2
This
version.
is 4.2 data services.
Okay.
All right, so it is 4.2. You'll get 14.2.2.446. Right, that's as the version code. This is data services 4.2. All right, so let's proceed with today's topic. If you don't have any questions, Chandra, you can just go back on mute if you don't have any further questions.
Sure, sure.
Okay. So today's concentration, today's topic will look at the extractions. Source flat files. All right, so today we will look at the second most important topic, that is connectivity. Right, how do we connect to different types of sources and how do we connect to different types of targets? So before that, I'll just try to do a quick recall on what we have seen so far so that it will be a good connectivity for us to understand where we were last session and what we are trying to learn in this session. All right, so we heard about the history and origin of business objects, how it came into picture, and how SAP acquired it. Then we saw the big box, which is business objects, and how it is divided into two parts. One is business objects enterprise, and the second one is business objects data services. And then we saw the architecture, how to create a local repository so that we can allow somebody connect to these business objects and work on this one. So we saw how to create these local repositories in the last session by providing user an access to his local repository so that they can connect to the system and they can connect to the system with BODS server and work on it. So if you look at the client and server architecture, there will be one central component, that is your BODS server, and all your nodes which will have the client tool installed on it will be connected to the server, and this is where we go ahead and create your local repositories which will allow us to connect to the server with a certain authentication usernames and passwords so that these local nodes, they can go ahead and connect with the server in their own and have their own workspace to work on it. So this is what we have created a local repository so that we can allow this user to access to the server, or clients access to the server, and they can work on the system. So this is creation of local repositories. So I designed this course in such a way that we go through a step-by-step process where we start right from the basics, understand what is what, and then see how it goes in hand with other transformations and then other tricks of the tool. So once we create this one, the next part that we have to look at is extractions, right? So when I say extractions, I have a source system and I have a target system to which I have to move. So as I told you, so BODS can move the data from any source to any target. So this is our BODS system, which does the ETL activity, which is extraction, transformation, and loading. So while we do this ETL activity, which is extraction, the first part of it, we should know how does our source systems get connected with BODS, or BODS, how does BODS interact with multiple sources. So when I say a source, what are the different patterns of source data that we can get, right? So we can get multiple patterns of source data. One is your flat files data, which is coming in from .txt, .csv, XLS, .dat, right, .xml. Then the second one is from a non-SAP system. When I say a non-SAP, it can be SQL, it can be Oracle, it can be DB2, any sort of a database, right? And the third system that we can get the data from is from SAP. So I just categorize the different types of sources into three simple or basic categories as per the data standards. One is your flat files, which includes .txt files, .csv, XLS, .dat, and all these things. And the second one, so any sort of a flat file, it can be XML, right? And it can be any delimiter file as well. It can be a comma delimiter file, it can be a tab delimiter file. So any type of a file we can handle that. So I'm covering all those things in the form of flat files. The second one is non-SAP systems. So when I say non-SAP systems, I'm considering the standard SAP or standard databases like Oracle, SQL, DB2, and any other database to that pattern. And the third one is SAP systems. When I say SAP, it is SAP BW, SAP ECC, or R3. We call it popularly as R3. So all these systems will fall under your SAP systems category. So we just need to learn how do we extract the data from these different sources, right? So I will try to add one more thing here, and we will try to do a quick demonstration on how do we do these extractions and load. So we will try to see a very basic thing like a flat file to flat file extraction, then a flat file to a database extraction, then we'll see a database to a database extraction. So when I say the thing, this is on the right hand side, which is our target system, and on the left hand side, which is our source systems or source files. Then the next one is database to a flat file, then SAP to a database extraction, and then SAP to a flat file extraction. And we will see what is unstructured flat file and a structured flat file in this scenario. So especially when you are trying to load the data into SAP system. So I did not mention the SAP system because I'm talking about it right now. So when we are trying to load the data into SAP system, it can be done in two mechanisms, LSMW, which stands for Legacy System Migration Workbench, because in SAP we are not allowed to load directly onto the SAP table, because SAP, it goes through a different application architecture where you have an application layer, and at the back end you have the database layer. So this is your ECC application, and at the back end you have a database. So we will not be writing through the application directly to the database. So we go through a programming mechanism called a legacy system migration workbench. It goes through a 14-step process where we read the data from a flat file and load that into SAP. So that is where we go and create the structured flat files. I'll talk about the differences between unstructured and structured. And if you are trying to load the data into a module, which is material master, for example, the idoc name is matmas bapi 03. So the name of the idoc is matmas bapi 03, and we will be loading the data in through this idocs. So the second mechanism is idocs. So we will look at these mechanisms once we understand the tool properly. So this idoc, when I say idoc, it is a nested structure or a NRDM structure which comprises of tables like material master tables like MARA, and under MARA we have MARC, MART, then MLGN, MLGT. All these are SAP tables for material master. So MAKT table is as a description table for the materials. MARC is a plant level information. MART is a storage level information, and MLGN, I guess it is distribution level information. So for every material number, you can extend these to different views. So that is what we generally do in MM01 transaction, where the functional people enter this transaction and they go and create a material in the SAP system, and then they extend it to a plant view, a storage location view, and a distribution center. Right? So based on the nature of material and type of material, it gets extended. So if you want to load the data through the idoc, so all these tables, so there are total 13 tables in material master idoc. So all these tables are updated in one go, and the relevant information is pushed onto the subsequent table. So let us say material number 1 is pushed, then plant level information for 1, then storage location information for 1, distribution center description for 1. So for every material that is present, its relevant segments will be populated. So this is a bulk load into the SAP system using idocs. So one or two tables you go with an LSMW approach, and multiple tables you go with an idoc approach. Right, it depends on the business scenario. So we'll look at these SAP loads a little later. Let us start with understanding the very basic fundamentals. How do I extract the data from a flat file and load it into a flat file? Right. So a few things that we need to remember when we are doing a data load into flat files, or when we are working on a real-time environment, right? So we will not be given a permission to write the data into any folder or any drive that we would like to. So because they want it to be consistent, so that every file that you create or every file that you read from should be present in one particular folder. So the system administrators, right, so they give you an inbound folder for you to have your source files placed at, and then the outbound folder for you to create your target flat files. So these will be the standard inbound and outbound directories. Inbound is your source and outbound is your target. And if you are not reading the data from inbound or not writing the data to your outbound directories, you will get the insufficient privileges error, and the description will be, please check your path and permissions, right? So that will be the error that you will be getting into once you see these. I mean, you are trying to write the data into folders where you don't have, or where BODS doesn't have an authorization to write to. Alright, so yeah, using BODS, we'll try to read the data from the inbound and write it into the outbound. So here on this server, my inbound is my source flat file, and outbound is my empty folder that I have just created. So we'll try to read the data from flat file to flat file. So Adil or Anita, do you have any questions? I get some background noise from you guys. So just if you don't have any questions, please try to put your systems on mute. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask. All right, thank you guys. This is just to avoid the backend noise when you go through the recording. So this is our fresh BODS local repository, which is absolutely empty. There are no projects. Or before even we do the flat file extraction, I'll just do a quick walkthrough on this designer. So if you look at this designer, this is divided into 3 areas. One is your project area, the second one is your local object library, and third one is your quick start page, right? So these are the 3 areas that your system is divided into, or your data services system is divided into. And just give me a second. I'm trying to look at the eraser, and probably the organizer is alright. Got it. Right. So the first area is your project area. So when you work on any activity, you kind of bundle your work, right? In SAP systems, if you look at the BW system, you do some enhancements to the existing info cubes or data models. What you do, you kind of bundle them into a package, and when you do the migration, you move your entire package together so that all the transport requests that are collected under the package will move from your source system to target system. Or if you want to talk in terms of an Oracle projects, when you actually create your project and everything, you kind of keep all your work in one schema name, so that you can, when you move the code from that schema to another schema, you just move the entire code, so that when you refresh your system on the new schema, you'll be able to see everything that you see on the system, right? So similar way, project area is a work area that I create as the developer, so that I can save all my work, right? All the activities that I perform on my system to be saved in this one. So to create a project area, or to create a project, there are multiple ways. One is you can click on this left corner button, which is Control N, or you can go to New, and you can go and click on New, and you can go to the projects, right? Or on the right hand side, Quick Start Page, right? So this is the start page. You can click on Create Project button, or you can click on the Open Project button and give some name XYZ, and it will just check for the name, and it will ask you, it is not available, do you want to create it now? And this is one more area where you can go and create your project. So these are the multiple ways, right? So I'm just letting you know all the possible ways, so that you can work easily as per your convenience. This is one. The second one is Control N, shortcut key on the keyboard. Then you can go to Projects, New, and you can create the project, or you can create it from the start page, or you can create it from this window. Just a second, guys. Alright, so these are the different ways in which we can go and create a project. And if you look at this project area, it is divided into 3 phases. One is your designer. This is where we actually see the code that we create, the flow diagram of your job. And the second one is your monitor, where when you are running your job, if you want to look at the stats, how many records are extracted, or for what reason that your job is failed, or the current running job can be monitored here, and log will give you the logs of the previous jobs that you ran on the system, right? So these are the 3 areas. One is your designer, where you can look at the code design, and second one is your monitor, where you can see the current running job, and the third one is logs. So you can actually unpin the structure, and if you are working on a big design, you can just minimize all those things and keep your window ready for your project. Or if you want to, by mistake, if you close something, right, and you want to go back to the default setup, so you can go to View, and apply default layout. Alright, so this is the basics of the screen, which is your project area, and the second one is your local object library, which actually holds your repository name. So if somebody asks you what is your repository name, you can go and look at your local object library and tell them that this is the repository that you are working on. All right, and right, and this local object library is divided into projects. The second one is your jobs. So projects, so whatever the project that we create here, the same project will be visible, but you can have more than one projects created. So let us say I have a code and I'm doing some testing on the code, so I can create a test project and keep my test sample codes available here and my actual project work there. And all the jobs that I have in my local repository will be displayed here. There are actually two types of jobs. One is your batch job and the second one is your real-time job. So batch job is something that you deal with the master data, and real-time is with the transactional data. We'll look into more details about that a little later. The next one is your workflow. You put your mouse over this, you will be able to see the descriptions. Workflow. Workflow is nothing but a folder where you can bundle your relevant data flows together. So when I have multiple data flows which are doing an extraction job, and I want to keep them together so that I will not search between multiple data flows in future. You want to keep everything in one place, right? I can go ahead and bundle those data flows into one single place. That is my workflow. And next one is my data flows. So the actual data movement, your source table, your target table, the transformations that you utilize, so all these things will be present or will be done under your data flows. So these data flows are again categorized into two types. One is your normal data flow and the second one is your abap data flow. So normal data flows, you will use that for SAP and non-SAP systems both, and especially when you are using an abap data flow, you can actually SAP recommends that you need to utilize an abap data flow only when you are extracting huge volume of data from an SAP system. So as per the SAP's recommendation, if you are trying to extract more than 10,000 records of data from SAP tables, then you go for an abap data flow. The background activity differs from a normal data flow to an abap data flow, and when you are in real-time scenarios like the one that I have seen on the projects, if you're trying to extract more than 50,000 records using a normal data flow and do the same activity using an abap data flow, so there is a significant difference in the execution time, right? So these are the two different types of data flows that we have, but data flow is the actual diagram where you will go and see your source table, your target table, and the transformation that you are trying to use in between. So talking about the transformations, these are the 3 sets or 4 sets of transformations that are available. So these are broadly categorized into platform, integrator, and quality. And TDP, text data processing, is a new one that is added to the system where it will allow you to read the data from a paragraph and try to put it in the table. So let us say there is a paragraph or a business journal that talks about multiple companies, their shareholders, their managers, or their owners, and their stock value. So based on the keywords that you enter on those transformation level, at the transformation level, it will go and pick those values from the paragraph and try to arrange it in a table so that you can have a structured information from an unstructured. And platform or the basic transformation, so that is why the name is given for this, platform. So if you know these platform transformations in and out, you'll be able to work on any data migration project, right? So the basic jobs you can complete with the platform transformations. Even if you go and look at the SAP best practices, 99% of the job design will have only these platform transformations. So this is very important that we know in and out of these transformations to work on data migration projects. And the second one is the integration set. So this integration set of transformations or integrated transformations will allow us to do a little more beyond what we can do with the platform, where we can handle the deltas or CDC change data captures. So different types of CDCs, type 1, type 2, type 3. All these things can be handled using the integration transformations, and you can do a performance tuning using data transfer. Then you can do a pivot and reverse pivot, the Excel functionalities, and you can do a little more, right? And the quality transformations, right? So it is broadly divided into two different categories. One is your address cleansing, and the second one is your data cleansing, right? So address cleansing transformations, they require you to procure a license from SAP directly so that you can download those directories into your server and then point your server to those directories so that you can actually sorry, the quality transformations. Quality transformations are broadly categorized into two different sets. One is your data cleansing, and the second one is your address cleansing. So data cleansing is actually where you go and cleanse your data and or standardize your data, and the address cleansing is where you go and standardize your address, right? If you have improper address, you can go and look up onto the address directories, and you can actually go and cleanse your address and standardize your address so that you can meet the formats or standards. So for this, we need to procure the license keys from SAP, download these address directories onto the server, and install them on the system. And the next set that you see here are data stores. So these data stores are connectors to the external systems, right? So when I say my BODS connects to both SAP and non-SAP sources, I need a connector for me to establish a connection from my BODS to the external systems. So these connections to the SAP and non-SAP systems are done with the help of a component called as data stores, and these data stores will actually allow me to communicate with the external system. One is read the data from the source and write the data to the target, right? So all these things can be done with the help of data stores, and especially when you are trying to deal with the flat files can be directly connected to your SAP data services system from the formats tab. The last but one transformation is tab is called the formats tab, which is divided as per your source file category. One is your flat files, Hadoop files, a nested schema when you want to deal with XML data, right? So I'll show you DTDs, data type definitions, XMLs, and JSONs. So all these can be handled. Then COBOL books and Excel workbooks or Excel files, right? So all these different sorts of flat files can be added to your data services system, and once they are added, you can utilize them as your source or as your target. And then this is the window which will allow you to create your custom functions or call your functions from source and target systems, and utilize them within your job. All right. So this is a quick walkthrough on your data services designer. So if you want to create some jobs or workflows, so projects in the menu bar, go to new. You can go and create a batch job, a real-time job, workflow, data flow, abap data flow, transformations, right? Data stores, flat files. So all these things can be created from this navigation, and also a quick shortcut links are provided in your start page, right? So with this introduction, let us go and start creating our own project. So there is a naming convention standard that is recommended by SAP, or in general sense, it is very good if you have your projects built up with the naming convention standards, because once multiple people work on the project, right, so we will end up consolidating all the users' work into one single system, right? Once you will upload all your code into one single server, and once you move it into the quality system, it should look like just one single person has designed all the code. So that is the reason why we will have the project naming convention standards or nomenclature documents created in the very beginning of the project, saying that these are the standards that we need to follow when we are creating, this projects or jobs or whatever the objects, right? So before we start looking at anything, one more thing that I would like to add here is every component, my project, my jobs, workflows, data flows, transformations, data stores, flat files, everything is called as an object in business objects or business objects data services. So everything that we create, work, or modify is called as an object. So there are two types of objects. One is single use object and reusable object, right? So we can reuse one object in multiple jobs, that is reusability, and single use is you just create it and use it only once, right? So most of the objects that you see within data services are reusable. This code is quite flexible. If you are doing a similar activity in multiple jobs, no need to do that, create that data flow again and again. We can just do that in one simple step, right? So let us go and create a project. The easiest way to create a project is click on New on the left top corner, and the project name starts with PRJ. Right, you can look at SAP best practices or any existing projects on data migration, data services. The project naming convention will be project, and then we will have the client name. And if you are working on a big project, we will mention the methodology AIO or BPDM, and then we will also end up mentioning if it is a big project and it is divided into multiple streams like sales, marketing, and finance, right? So we will create separate project folders for sales, for marketing. All the marketing jobs will be held in one folder, then all the finance jobs will be held in one folder, and sales job will be held in one folder. So this is how you follow your naming conventions. I'm just giving it as BODS underscore training, and click on create. So once you click on create, you will see the same folder reflected in your projects tab of your local object library and also in your project area. So let me go and create one more thing and see what will happen. I call this as PRJ underscore real time. So this is for our transactional data. And now you can see two folders in your local object library, but you can see only one project folder displayed in project area. So project area is nothing but your current work area, which can hold only the current project folder in which you are working on. All right. So I'll just repeat this one more time to make sure that we understand it properly. So project area holds the current project environment on which you are working on, right? So there can be multiple project folders that you have. One is your project real time or marketing, sales, and finance. If you are working on the marketing project, you need to double click that one, and that will be displayed on your project area, right? The second step, when I'm trying to create a job, let me try to put it in simple steps. So flat file to a flat file extraction. To do this activity, first I need to create a job which will run this activity. Then second one, a data flow which will hold my source flat file and target flat file. I'm not doing any transformation in between. It is just one-to-one connect. And the third one is how to execute my job. Right, so these are the three simple steps using which I can move my data from one flat file or data from my inbound directory to my outbound directory. Right, so first thing is to create the job. So to create your job, you can go to projects, new, select the batch job. So when we are doing about the master data, we generally go with the batch jobs, real-time jobs. We'll look at that a little later once we understand the batch jobs properly. So batch job, go to new and batch job. You can create this way, or you can go to the jobs tab, select the batch job, right click and go for new. I repeat, go to your local object library, go to your jobs tab, select the batch job, right click and go for new. And the most easiest way is select your project, right click and go for, one second. Okay, sorry, I'm the log tab. So select your project, right click and go to your batch job or real-time job. Previous to this, I was in the monitor or log tab. So when you do that, you cannot create anything here. You need to be in the design tab to create your batch job. So select your project, right click and create the job. And job name stands with JOB underscore, then the methodology, then the client name, right? And the module in which you are working, for finance, and if it is accounts payable, it is AP, right? Or if you have any bigger stream before, but make sure that when you are giving the name of the project or the job or your data flows or your target tables, the names should not exceed more than 30 character length, because your code should be flexible to run on Oracle system or SQL system or any other backend databases, just to make sure that we don't trim our table names or job names once we move from one system to another. We just need to make sure that all the naming conventions that you provide, you can use the shortcuts, right? So you, instead of using client, you can use CLNT. Instead of using finance or FIN, you can just use FI. Accounts payable, you can just use AP. But you just make sure that your name of jobs, data flows, workflows, tables, right, everything should be less than 30. That is one good practice. All right, so if you want to rename the job name, you can just select the job name and press F2. And here I'm trying to do a flat file to flat file extraction. So only underscores are accepted, no special characters, no ampersand, no hyphen, nothing is accepted in your job name, or not even blank spaces, right? So it should be connected with an underscore. So this job says this is a job which does the flat file to flat file extraction, right? Or if you want to be more detailed on your job, one of the mandatory activity that we perform, or the best practice I can say, is annotations, where you will give a heads up to the other person who is looking at this job, saying that this job is to extract data from a flat file to another flat file. So you can just give an annotation so that once you hand out the code to other person, move out of the team or get into another project, there will be no need for you to give a KT again and again till the other person understands. You can just document the entire job, put these annotations on the code, across the code, and you can just leave it so that the other person can look at it. Right, so this is my job. The next one is to create a data flow. Right, so to create a data flow, again, you can go to projects, new, you can select the data flow option, and you can go to the data flow tab of your local object library, select and right click in new. You can go to the, alright, so those two ways you can create that. And the third way is, once you are in the project folder, right, let me just close this all. So once you are in the project folder, right, or once you are in the start page, if you just look at the highlighted portion here on the right hand side, you will not see anything, right? You will not see any set of tools that are displayed here. But once you click on the job, you will get the most used tools as a tool palette. right? So you see on the right hand side, these are the tool palettes that will allow you to utilize or the most used objects of data services tool are placed on the right hand side for a quick reference. So there you will have the data flow. So you click on the data flow and click on the job. This is the job window, right? So I click on this, and data flow name starts with df. So it is df underscore ff underscore ff underscore ext. Right now your job is ready, your data flow is ready, and once you open the data flow, it opens in a new tab at the bottom, and this is where you actually put your source file, then your target file, and link them up and run the job. So this is my inbound directory where I have my source file, let us say customer, and if you open this customer, it is a tab delimited file, right? If you want to cross-check your data, always copy that and try to put that in an Excel. So as a data services consultants or data migration consultants or data migration leads, right? So you will be more concerned, you'll be more concerned or looking into the data. Alright, so you just double click or you select the corner and double click to make sure you have the data present in the right set, right? And at the bottom, right? So there are 52 rows, which means I have 50 records that are present in my table, because the first row I left it empty and the second row is my header information. So this is my flat file data which I'll be reading into my data services, and this is a tab delimited file. So I'm just closing the Excel because Excel is something that I opened for reference. Now to read this data into data services, we need to connect it through the formats tab. So go to your data services, go to your formats tab, and since it is a flat file, .txt, csv, .dat extensions can be connected through the flat files tab. So to create a flat file, again, there are multiple ways. You can select projects, new, you can go to file formats, alright, or second one, go to your formats tab, just right click on this white area and you can go for new and select a file format. Or the third approach is select your file, right click and go for new. It will open a small pop-up window where you need to give in or key in the different parameters that talk about your input file. So first is the name of the file. I'm giving it as ff underscore customer, and remember, going forward I will be adding so many flat files, so many flat files as source, or creating so many flat files as target. So it will be hard for me to differentiate between multiple files, saying that this is an error report, this is a source file, this is a target file, unless and until I name them properly, right? So it is always good that you name them properly. This is the name of the file. Then second one is the location of the file. Right? Do not click on this drop down because it goes through the paths, the parameters and variables. We'll talk about that a little later. So click on the folder here on the root directory and go to your desktop or the outbound directory and click on OK. Or if you know the path, you can just copy and paste your path here, and then the name of the file. So if you are trying to select an existing file, you need to double click on the folder, or if you're trying to create a new file, you can just give the name of the file and you can give the extension. .txt is the extension that I'm giving. You can give .csv as well, right? .dat as well. So it is a comma operated file, and I want to convert that to a tab, semicolon, comma, space, or a pipeline delimited file, right? So you can do a conversion on the delimiters here, and then different options to escape the null characters, null indicators, then ignore null, date and time format, then input and output structures. So since this is our source, which is my input structure, all right, skip the row headers, right? If you are having uh, right, if you are having any additional spaces about your data, so let us say if you export the data from a flat file from SAP table into a flat file, you'll end up seeing some 3 to 4 lines, empty lines. So if you have data like that in an Excel, you can skip those, or in a notepad you can skip those by providing the number. And since this is my source file, I don't want to read the header information, right, as data. I want my header to be understood, but it should not be my data. So I'm skipping the row headers, right? And just one second. Right, select your file, customers. Sorry, I'm just talking about the output. Right, the moment you select your file as your existing file name, it will ask you to override the schema. Guys, just give me a second. Alright, sorry. So the moment you give the inbound directory path and select your file, it will override the current schema. So what is the current schema? The current schema is field 1, varchar, and 100, which is nothing but your metadata of the table. So when I click on yes, it will give some metadata, but it is not in a proper understandable format. So you give the right delimiter there, and again it will ask you to overwrite, and now you see the correct structure, right? This is my column name, these are my column names, these are the data types, and these are the length. So especially in any project when you are trying to read the data from a flat file, right? So BOD system reads through 15 lines of the flat file, and if let us say the length of the uh, customer ID is only 5-character length in the first 15 rows, and after 18th row it is 20-character length or 10-character length, the system will take something by default. So to avoid this kind of errors, right, so it allows you to do a conversion on the data type, which you can convert it into an integer, or if you want to keep it as a varchar, you can always go and increase the length, right? So as per the input from the data owners, you can go and speak to the data owners, and initially when you do an extraction or when you try to do a transformation, you will be given a mapping sheet. This sheet talks about how your source data is mapped to your target data and what are the data types. Are you doing any conversion on the data types, or you're trying to make sure the length is standard, right? It is 10-character length, it is 5-character length. So these kind of assumptions or cross-checks will be given in those mapping sheets. So based on the mapping sheet, you will be re-verifying these data types and changing them. And if you're trying to link your data with any content, right? So these are the pre-built content types that are available with data services, right? Social security numbers, routing codes for banks, then region codes, and name and forms like locality, postal codes, titles, right? Mr., Miss, Master, right? And then your country code, date format, delivery units. You can link your data to any of this if you know its content type, and if you have a fixed format for the data, you can also specify the format, because if you look at the social security number, it has 3 characters, 2 characters, and then again 4 characters length, right? If you look at the PAN number, it has some 10 characters length in India, right? So based on the type of data, you can go and assign it to the standard content type, and you can see the sample data visible here, right? So it can read the special accents and everything. So data services is a multilingual tool. It can support Arabic, it can support different languages, because it really doesn't care about if it is in English or a number. It just takes the image of the data and try to process it. So you can read any kind of data. Now just click on save and close, and your source flat file is available, right? Remember, I told you data services will not save even a single record of data. But what is this? When I click on view data, right? I'm able to see my data from the source, which doesn't mean that data service is still saving some data. Data services allows you to look into your source and target systems data. So it gives you a flexibility that you can peep into your source system, you can peep into your target system, and then you can look at the sample data and then plan your jobs, right? The next step is to make your target file. So select your flat file, right click new, then I'll just ff_cust_trgt. I'm just copying the same name so that I can point it to my outbound directory on my desktop and give the name as .txt. This is what I was supposed to do but in the beginning, but I was just a little confused or a little deviated with my kids' toy shouting outside. Alright, sorry for that. And I'm giving the column delimiter. And since this is my target file, I want my target file to have the header, right? I'm keeping this source file, skip the row header, target file, keep the row header as yes, right? And then this gets populated with your source metadata. So initially it will not have any metadata. So just click on save and close and it gets populated with whatever the metadata that is coming in from your source. So select the source file and drag and drop it into your data flow. Right, so this is the data flow window, drag and drop it. And when you drag and drop your flat file, it will ask you whether you want to make it as source or target. So select your file as source and then the other file as your target. Right, so source files, they show you a magnetic glass symbol here. So you click on that and you can view the data here as well. Alright, once you run your job, your target flat file will have your magnetic symbol. Sorry, magnetic glass symbol. So link your source files with your target file. So this is just a connector. So once you move your mouse pointer to your object on the left hand side, so how do you call it as a source object? So it will have a connector on its right hand side and your target objects will have a connector on your left hand side, and let us say your transformations will have a connectors on either sides, right? So move your mouse to the connectors and it will work like a chalk. So draw a line between your source and target, right? So your job design is done. Then immediately go and save all. There's the button right next to project open. There's the button called save all. You can press on that one and it will save your data flow, job, everything. Now the second step, most important thing, is you validate your job, right? So you validate your job and ensure that your job is syntactically correct, right? To do that activity, you can actually validate that code syntax through these two options, right? What is validate current and what is validate all? So if you are in a particular object, within an object, let it be your flat file, data flow, job, right? If you just want to validate that current object, you can see this validate all is grayed out. So you can validate an independent object by using the validate current option, or if you have multiple objects, you can select one and you can say validate current, or if you want to validate all the objects, the entire job, select the job on the left hand side and you click on validate all. And if you have any errors, warnings or information, that will be displayed in this output window. So this says that there are no errors. Now you select your job, right click and execute the job. So even before you execute it will ask you to save. Click on OK, and this is your execution properties window, right? So there are multiple options. We'll talk about that a little later. So as of now, the basic things is the job server on which your job is running, and click on OK. Now you see this monitor. It has a traffic light signal which says the job is running, and once the job is done, it goes to a stop signal, right? And then in the log, if you expand the project, you will see the log of your job which says it is successfully completed, right? And this is the right side monitor window. We'll talk in details about this. It is divided into three categories: trace, monitor and error. We'll talk in details about each and every step. What is PID, TID, what are the types, timestamps and messages. And this shows that 50 records are extracted from my source flat file in 0.002 seconds and written into my target flat file in 0.001 second, and total time taken for this job to execute is 3.6 seconds. Right, so this is how fast data services can do. It's just 50 records, but going forward we'll look at multiple files and multiple records and see how fast data services can handle it. So this is, if you get any errors, this will be activated and you will see a red symbol here. You click on that and that will show you the error log. Alright, so we will talk about details of these 3 logs and what exactly happens in this one in tomorrow's session, but this is how you extract the data from one flat file to another flat file. These are very basics and fundamentals, but I just want to spend a lot of time on this one because if we understand the foundation strong, then we will be able to track any kind of an issue on data services, and we will get a good insight on the entire tool. So keeping that in mind, I'm trying to spend a little longer time on the fundamentals so that we will understand the tool properly. Alright, so if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask your questions. Anita, Chandra, Sumant, Vandana, Adil, if you guys have any questions, you can utilize this time to ask your questions, or you will get the recorded video, and when you are going through that video, if you have any questions, just make a note of them so that you can ask them once we start our session tomorrow.
Rakesh, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, Chandra, go ahead.
Rakesh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you forward those source flat files to us?
Yeah, I will do that activity. Yeah.
For a practice purpose.
Yeah, sure. Because I know it's a little hard because I kind of created them from some database tables, from SAP tables, and created some junk. So I'll definitely forward that.
We have some, but those are not complex.
Okay, not a problem. I'll share them with you guys. Definitely. Alright guys, and if you don't have any questions for today, we will try to have more questions from tomorrow. But I really appreciate if you make it a little more interactive, because that is how I learn and how you learn and get a different insight, because no question is small. Probably when I started my data services self-learning, I used to search on very fundamental questions, and I never had an opportunity to look at, or the forums are not available back in 2008 when I started my data services journey. So it's you have a lot of forums these days, but those days there's no one to ask you or answer your fundamental questions. But no question is small or big, because everybody, we are giving it a start right now. So if you ask a question, probably somebody is also trying to ask on those lines, and they will try to understand it, or they will also, if multiple people ask multiple questions, right, the entire team over here or the entire forum will look at the tool in multiple dimensions. So that is why I'm trying to get this point to your notice.
And there is no gaps, right?
There will not be. Then there should not be.
What about Sundays?
No, weekdays, we will go with 5 days a week, because, we should give the rest of the people who are, getting into IT freshly, or who are moving from other technology to this one, you should get some, at least 2 days to practice on your system. So Saturdays and Sundays will be an off, and we will do a 5-day training.
Okay. And every day is 1.5 hours or 2 hours?
So it will be for 1.5 hours to 1 to 1.5 hours based on the topic that we are discussing. If everybody is okay, then we can stretch it a bit so that we can complete the entire topic end to end. And if in case we are not, and somebody has got some urgent work, then probably we can close it within an hour and then proceed in the next session.
Sure, because I'm expecting some quick thing. That's why I
Yeah,
asked. No
Chandra,
problem.
I got your requirement, so definitely I'll promise that at least in another 10 days you'll be able to attend the BODS interviews, and in another 15 to 16 days you can start working on the projects.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
The basic things I'll just try to complete all those things, and then we'll try to look at the performance tuning optimizations and the trick of the trade. What are the do's and don'ts of data services if you are going and standing in front of customers, so what to talk and how to convince the customer about the project. So I'll talk about all these things a little later, but as of now we will go through the fundamentals, and as we speak about the fundamentals, they are not just the basics, but they should allow you to work on the projects as well.
Okay, Rakesh, thank you.
Alright guys, thanks for joining today's session, and we'll connect again tomorrow at the same time, and probably we will start at 8 p.m. CST sharp or 6:30 a.m. IST sharp, whichever the time zone that you guys are in. As per the email that you will be getting, the invitation will try to connect sharp, and we'll try to discuss more, because we have a lot to discuss. This is just one flat file to another, and we have to talk about what is this window, what we get to understand from this, how do we track to our errors and all these things. And once these fundamentals are done, then we'll pick a little more or a little faster pace, and then we will start talking about our different sources to different target extractions. And once they are done, then we'll try to include the transformations in between. Right guys, thanks for joining today's session, and hope to see you in tomorrow's session. Till then, take care, have a good day and good night.
Yeah, bye.